Hi, today we're going to take a look at the Cine lens by Viltrox. We're going to show you some of its features, how it performs, so stick around for our test results. Today we'll be testing our first APS-C Cine lens, the Viltrox 56mm T1.5, part of a new compact video-oriented lens line by the company. Viltrox has been expanding the line of lenses in recent years, coming up with more focal lengths, mounts, and a range of autofocus lenses, including some new full-frame ones like the 24 f1.8 autofocus lens at a very affordable price tags. The lens that we shall review today is part of another new series which includes two other prime lenses, the 23 and 33mm, both with T1.5 apertures and supposedly similar in optical design to the company's equivalent still lenses, which have been available on the market for some time now. We will start with optical design, and the Viltrox 56mm has a fairly simple optical design with 10 elements in 9 groups, including one ED and one highly refractive element and a multi-layer nanocoating. The lens officially covers an APS-C sensor with a 28.4 image circle, but we decided to see what will happen if we will put it on the full-frame sensor of our A1, and surprisingly, the Vignette was not that bad, and if you're willing to use clear image zoom just a little, you can remove it almost completely, making it a very interesting compact fast full-frame Cine lens. The lens is fully metal and feels very well made. Viltrox also mentions that it includes some brass components. The lens isn't very big at a tad over 8 cm long, but it does have a bit of weight to it compared to its size at just over 540 grams, about twice the weight of its stills version. The lens has two rings, a front focusing ring and a back smooth aperture ring. Both rings have 0.8 gears, and the focus ring has a focus throw of close to 180 degrees. Both rings seems to have very good resistance and feel very nice to use. Viltrox also added an extra touch with distance markings on both sides in meters and in feet, as well as aperture markings next to the aperture ring on both sides. The only thing that we didn't like about both of these is that the markings are on the sides of the lens and not the top, but that might be a Cine thing or just a result of having the markings on both sides. In terms of buttons and switches, this lens has a very classic design without any buttons or switches. We are also not aware of any sealings on this lens, so please be careful when using this lens in wet or dusty environments. At the moment, we are only aware of an E-mount version of this lens, which is what we tested on our Sony a6500. While the lens doesn't come with a hood, its front element is fairly recessed and seems to be well protected. The lens comes with a metal front cap. We do love the idea, however it can fall sometimes, so maybe Viltrox can add a pinch mechanism in the future. The lens has 14 aperture blades, the most of any lens that we have tested to date. We will see later on in this review how this affects the bokeh of the lens. And finally, for this section, the lens supports a 62mm front filter thread. We'll move over to performance and we'll start with focusing. The lens is a fully manual lens. There is no communication between the body and the lens, and of course no EXIF data. The lens is pretty enjoyable to pull focus with, and for non-close-up or macro shooting, having around 180 degrees of throw seems like a pretty nice balance between accuracy and speed. You know what is always in sharp focus? The subscribe button. So subscribe and hit that bell icon. For the optical part of this review, we decided to test the Viltrox against one of our favorite APS-C lenses, the Sigma 56mm f1.4. A really outstanding compact still lens that we have reviewed here back in early 2019. We tested the sharpness of both lenses using our special large professional Imatest high-end chart on our Sony a6500. Wide open in the center of the frame, the Viltrox looks okay, but it is certainly not as sharp as the Sigma. At T2, things improve, but it is still not as sharp as the Sigma wide open. In the corners, things are very different, and the Viltrox is not sharp at all, even at T2, and although it does improve around T4, it is still not as sharp as the Sigma wide open. The official minimum close-up distance of the Viltrox is 63 cm, which is also what we got in our test, while the Sigma is only 45 cm when using manual focus, which makes for a visible difference when shooting close-up images. As for image quality, wide open, the Viltrox is certainly less sharp and contrasty, although at T2 we see a significant improvement. So, if you need to shoot close up with this lens, use T2 or above. In our test, the lens has visible breathing, although it is not extreme and certainly less than that exhibited by the Sigma lens. When it comes to chromatic aberrations, the Viltrox exhibits some very prominent longitudinal chromatic aberrations all the way up to T2.8, which clears up at around T4. The Sigma isn't completely free of this issue, but seems to handle chromatic aberrations much better. The Viltrox shows a lot of flare as well as some reduction in contrast when facing bright light sources. Again here we see that Sigma seems to have much better coatings that can handle direct light, although for a cine lens that can actually be a look that some might find to be appealing. Moving over to Vignette, the Viltrox has very limited darkening in the corners even wide open, and closing down to T2 makes most of it go away and completely gone between T2.8 and T4. In comparison, the Sigma has very prominent darkening in the corners, which is clearly visible even at f2.8. The Viltrox also seem to have fairly minimal pincushion distortion. Our Sigma 56mm on the other hand has some really heavy pincushion going on. Looking at the bokeh of the lens compared to the Sigma, we would say that both lenses are very similar wide open. Closing down, you start seeing the difference made by the extra aperture blades. While this is certainly not a still lens, at T8 you can see some really lovely sun stars with this lens. So let's conclude. The Viltrox 56mm T1.5 Cine lens is the first lens that we have reviewed here from the Chinese brand, and it is definitely interesting. It is very well built, easy to use with just the right focus throw. It has low distortion, fairly low breathing, and a decent bokeh. All around, for the price, it is a decent option for those looking for a compact, well-built cine lens for APS-C cameras, and if you're okay with a little vignette, even on a full frame, especially when using a bit of clear image zoom. The lens isn't without its drawbacks, of course. It is certainly not as sharp as the fantastic Sigma 56mm f1.4 still lens, especially not in the corners. It suffers from quite a bit of flare against bright light sources, but more than anything, it has a lot of chromatic aberrations until T2.8. With that said, if you're mostly going to use it at that aperture or above, it is certainly recommended for its price range. And talking about pricing, the lens is available now for a price of $415. The stills version of this lens has autofocus and sells for $280. And if you happen to be interested in the Sigma 56mm f1.4 still lens, it is currently selling for under $400. So that was our look at the 56mm T1.5 lens by Viltrox. You can check out the full review with all of our test results on LensVid.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to find more videos just like this. See you next time.